This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi, your spoiler-free place for Star Wars community and conversation. I'm your host, Dan Z, thrilled to be talking Star Wars with each and every one of you. You can support Coffee with Kenobi by following the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Help spread the word by tweeting that you're listening, share it on Facebook, or invite your family and friends to tune in and share a cup of coffee with all of us. If you are planning a vacation or hoping to go to Star Wars Celebration, be sure to work with our affiliate travel partner, MEI and MouseFan Travel at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/MouseFanTravel. On today's show, the one and only Jim Hill returns to talk with us about Christmas in the Stars, the classic Star Wars holiday album from 1980. We've got lots of stories and behind the scenes of the making of this very unique Star Wars collectible. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee is my co-host from Looking at Lucasfilm, back when we had our Looking at Lucasfilm podcast discussing Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Lucasfilm things. But more importantly, you know him, you love him, my old friend, Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, welcome back to Coffee with Kenobi.
Yes, I am a ghost of Christmas past. Ooh, we worked together so many years ago. Well, thank you for inviting me on. And as I understand it, we are covering a special story that somebody requested years ago now, right?
That's right. We were kind of in the thick of working on Lucasfilm, and Andrew Toffoli, Toffoli, Andrew, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. He wanted to know if we could devote a show to the 1980 Christmas in the album. So Andrew, we took one for the team, and we have listened to the album, and Jim has got a lot of great information on it, as only Jim can do. Jim is, of course, one of the great storytellers of all time in the world of podcasting and writing. So Jim, we're looking forward to hearing what you learned about this classic. You know, you have White Christmas, you have Johnny Mathis, you've got Vince Guaraldi, and then you've got Christmas in the Stars.
Yeah, but there are quite a few steps down from the Vince Guaraldi. But at the same time, you're right. It has a fascinating history that actually, this album is a direct result of a gentleman called Mako Morando. He was a session musician. In fact, started out by specializing in trombone back in the 1960s. And he and several friends formed I swear to God, this is a real thing, Dan, the Disco Corporation of America in 1973. And they have their first big hit in 74 with Gloria Gaynor's Never Can Say Goodbye. Anyway, where this fits into, or would be of interest to Coffee with Kenobi listeners, is on May 25th, 1977, Mako goes to see Star Wars at Grauman's Chinese Theater. And by the following day, Thursday, May 26th, he's already seen Star Wars, Dan, 4 more times. And he's just obsessed with this movie. So he reaches out to famed record producer Neil Bogart. This is the guy, by the way, Dan. He's the one who signed Kiss. He launched the career of Donna Summer and the Village People. So this is a big deal. And Mako pitches to Neil the idea that we should produce a disco version of John Williams' Star Wars theme. And Bogart's like, okay, hang on. And Neil actually waits a month because it's like, this thing's a fad. You know, I mean, yeah, it's a fun film, and yeah, a lot of people are going to see it, but it's still a fad. But by 4 weeks, I mean, it's still at the top of the box office, and it's all over pop culture, and it's on the cover of, Time and Newsweek, and it's sort of like, okay, not a fad. So Neil runs interference with George Lucas, and I to this day, I'm kind of amazed at how quickly this came together. Inside of 3 weeks, they had arranged and recorded Star Wars and Other Galactic Funk. The album itself hit store shelves, Dan, just 2 weeks later. And a single from the recording, Star Wars Theme and Cantina Band, begins climbing the charts almost immediately. It winds up as the number one song in America in October of 77 and holds that position for 2 solid weeks. Also charts really well on the R&B charts, likewise on the dance charts. I think it made it as high in the R&B charts and 6 on the dance charts. And for a time, it actually outsells the John Williams Star Wars soundtrack.
Oh, that's painful.
Well, but again, you got to understand it's the 70s. We had no taste then. All right, I say that to somebody who grew up in the 70s. Anyway, the album and the single both certified platinum. The album sells 1 million copies. 2 million copies of the single are sold and get certified in June of 78. And so, look. We know that George had initially planned on the Journey of the Wills, and with the hope that Star Wars would be a success, he would do future films in the saga. And sure enough, by August of 77, he's starting to suss out what would eventually become Empire. And on the music side of things, Mako really wants to do a follow-up to Star Wars and Other Galactic Funk. But the only problem is the disco backlash is underway, Dan. Did you ever hear the story about what happened at Kaminsky Park in Chicago on Disco Demolition Night?
I know it's somewhat infamous, but you'll have to help me connect the dots. I remember hearing about it years ago.
Okay, well, basically what happens, they're holding a doubleheader at Kaminsky Park between the Tigers and the White Sox. And a local radio station decided as a piece of entertainment that they would do this event called Disco Demolition Night. So basically, they put a crate filled with disco albums in the middle of the field and filled it with explosives and then set it off. But what ends up happening is that someone clearly miscalculated because they blow a hole in the center of Kaminsky Field that's so big that the White Sox are now forced to forfeit the second game of this doubleheader to the Tigers because they can't play. It's like, look, you idiots allowed this radio station to come here. You lose. Anyway, in fact, I think we talked on Looking at Lucasfilm about the Star Wars Holiday Special, which had actually debuted on CBS some 8 months earlier, November of 78. That's already got kind of an interesting reputation. So, but here's the thing. Mako Morando knew through record sales information that Neil Bogart had given him that the very best-selling recordings of all time are Christmas albums. And that's, again, because they're perennial. I mean, the very stuff you talked about at the top of the show, those albums, many of which were recorded in the 50s and the 60s, sell consistently year in, year out. So this is the idea that Miko and Neil bring to George and for approval in late 79. It's like, let's do, a Christmas album. And now you have to remember that George is right in the middle of doing Empire then. And they're explaining to us like, look, but this time it's not going to be disco. It's not, Star Wars and the Other Galactic Funk. It's going to be a Christmas album. With Star Wars characters, with original songs that'll be tailored to specific characters like C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewie. And George is initially resistant. And again, remember, he's still living down the Star Wars Holiday Special at this point. But on the other hand, the cost of Empire is going through the roof. And Lucasfilm could really use another revenue stream right about now. So a deal gets signed with the understanding that Christmas in the Stars, a Star Wars Christmas album, will be the first of a series of annual holiday recordings. George does lay down some conditions about what characters can and cannot be featured in this recording, but he also puts Miko in touch with Anthony Daniels, the performer behind C-3PO. Likewise, he makes Ben Burt available, the resident sound engineer for Lucasfilm. So it will at least sound authentic. But right from the get-go, there are issues. Anthony Daniels, for example, is only available for one weekend. That's all the time he can devote to this recording. Also, he's never sung professionally before. And as for the original songs for this recording, Miko recruits then Yale University music professor Maury Yeaston to write these. Now, these days, Yeaston is known for his Tony Award-winning work for acclaimed musicals like 1989's Grand Hotel or 1997's Titanic. But this is really his first professional music writing assignment. And to be honest, Dan, the only reason he took it is that his then 7-year-old son absolutely loves Star Wars. So, he suddenly became the cool dad who was writing something for C-3PO and R2-D2 and that sort of thing. So he says yes, but and what's kind of interesting is Maury has talked about working on this, the Christmas album since, and he actually chastises himself because it's like, I didn't do the research. I didn't really know the character. And he said, look, there was only one Star Wars movie at that point. Didn't really know the characters all that well. And so he has things. There were. Do you know those moments in Christmas in the Stars, Dan, where you have like C-3PO talking about Japan or the Magna Carta?
Those old time classics, yes.
Well, yeah, but it's one of these things where it's just, but it's not Star Wars specific stuff. He, for example, never references Life Day, which again is a holiday in the stars. And also, it's important to stress here that neither Miko nor Maury had access to the script for Empire Strikes Back while they're working on Christmas in the Stars. They had no idea that the Irvin Kershner film would be as dark as it was, or they would end at a cliffhanger. In fact, Yeaston, again, when he talks about this project, stresses that he thought he was making a novelty recording that was aimed at children, so something similar to the Let's All Sing Like the Chipmunks album from '59, which had the Christmas Don't Be Late song on it. So that brings us to probably the most infamous recording, a song from the album that with the title, What Do You Get a Wookiee for Christmas When He Already Owns a Comb? But which is a silly sounding title, but that's, and again, that was, again, the Maury deliberately trying to write something that could only be for Star Wars characters. But what's kind of interesting, though, is What Can You Get a Wookiee for Christmas did for a few years after Christmas in the Stars first came out in November of 1980, did get some play during the holiday season. It wound up in rotation with those kinds of songs you only hear at Christmas time, like I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas, the Gala Peavy recorded that back in '53, or Dominic the Donkey, which Lou Monte recorded in 1960. Any of these ringing a bell, Dan?
The hippopotamus one, actually, in between class periods, they play Christmas music to let you know you've got a minute until the final bell rings. And today they played I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas.
Oh, well, there we go. Well, Dominic the Donkey.
Not the donkey one.
Oh, Dominic's the donkey that helps Santa deliver the toys in the hilly territory of Italy. So,
makes sense.
Boy, oh God, it's a bad song. Okay, and here again, what I love about this story is it goes in so many different directions. Like, did you know that Christmas in the Stars, A Star Wars Christmas, is the very first professional recording that Jon Bon Jovi ever sang on?
I did know that. And how did his career turn out, by the way? How did he end up doing?
Well, Actually, he owes this very first gig, and in fact, he sings the lead vocals on R2D2's "We Wish You a Merry Christmas." His cousin Tony Bon Jovi actually worked with Meko Morado on Star Wars and other Galactic Funk back in summer of '77. So, hoping to duplicate the success of that recording, Tony and Miko get back together to work on Christmas in the Stars. And since Jon Bon Jovi is so desperate to get into show business at this time, he is literally working as the janitor at the recording studio that his cousin owns. Tony goes to Miko and it's like, look, can you do my cousin a favor? And can you let him sing something on this album? So that's how he ends up as the lead vocalist on R2D2's We Wish You a Merry Christmas.
Wow, he was living on a prayer and he made it happen.
Woo, woo. Very good. Proof of the guy. Okay, now, based on how well Star Wars and Galactic Funk had previously sold, a lot of folks in the industry thought Christmas in the Stars, Star Wars Christmas, would be a huge hit. So there's a lot of competition between labels as to who's going to land this album. And eventually Robert Stigwood, the rock and roll impresario behind the Bee Gees, Cream, Eric Clapton, and Andy Gibb, he comes out on top. And Stigwood then releases this holiday recording under his signature label, RSO Records. So, first pressing of 150,000 copies of Christmas in the Stars sells well enough during the 1980 holiday season that plans are made for a second printing of similar size, which would then go up for sale for the 1981 holiday season. And George Lucas actually seems pleased with the finished product, so much so that he asked that his name be added to the album cover for Christmas in the Stars, Star Wars Christmas, when the second printing is done. But then, Dan, in late 1980s, or late 1980, the Bee Gees, who didn't just record for the Stigwood organization, they were actually personally managed by Robert. They filed a $200 million lawsuit against RSO Records and Stigwood, claiming mismanagement. And Robert then countersues the Bee Gees for $310 million, claiming libel, defamation of character, and extortion. This legal brouhaha is eventually settled for an undisclosed amount, but while this is going on, business effectively stops at RSO Records. In fact, Stigwood will walk away from the label in '81, which years later will have its catalog absorbed by Polygram. And Christmas in the Stars, Star Wars Christmas, kind of falls through the cracks as a direct result. There's just that one pressing. And what's genuinely ironic about this, Dan, is that one of the whole reasons that RSO Records landed the rights to release Christmas in the Stars, Star Wars Christmas, is that Robert also told George that he'd be willing to pay top dollar to release the soundtracks of Empire Strikes Back, and at that point, the yet unnamed third film, which eventually became Return of the Jedi. And so, direct result of this Bee Gees lawsuit, it throws that deal into a gray area for a number of years. The Star Wars soundtracks wound up for a time at Sony Classic. And Dan, how many versions of the Star Wars soundtrack do you own? I'm assuming you have
probably
LP.
I've got the 8-track of the original. I've got 2 pressings of the original vinyl, and I've got countless versions of it on CD.
Okay. And did any of those come out through Sony Classic that you know of, or?
I do. Some of the CDs are from Sony Classic. Yeah.
Okay. Because to be honest, it's not until Disney buys Lucasfilm in October of 2012, and Disney then sicks its lawyers on this problem. And over time, the rights to those Star Wars soundtracks are then, reclaimed or wind up in the hands of the Disney Music Group. So what's intriguing about that for me is that means, in theory anyway, Dan, Christmas in the Stars, Star Wars Christmas, is now owned by Disney, which means that Disney could, if it wanted to, re-release this recording. And face it, you and I know that Disney has shown interest in getting into the Star Wars holiday business. We had, last year we had the Lego Star Wars Holiday Special, and this year we had the Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tale. I have to tell you, Dan, what terrifies me is the idea that I'd have to listen to Bells, Bells, Bells again. But
and there's a Life Day Disney publication. It's a couple of short stories set around Life Day as well.
Yes. So, what do you, again, this is your world. How often do you actually listen to Christmas in the Stars?
When I was a kid, I remember hearing it on the radio and before this show. That's it. That's the list right there. So not very often. So interestingly enough, by the way, in '96 they did a re-release.
Did they really?
And it's still available on it's available on Amazon.com for the cool cost of $99.99 for the audio CD, and the vinyl new for $159.95. So they're pretty pricey. But you can, in fact, the day of this recording, you can get it within 3 days. So I mean, they've got them. They've got the rehashes from '96 are lying around, but it'll be nice to get a more affordable one. And I'm not sure if they're on Spotify. That would be interesting to see.
I'm intrigued though. Do we know if the reissue from '96 did that come out through Sony Classic or did somebody else?
I can tell you right now. It says Miko.
Just Miko. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Manufacturer Rhino, but Miko is.
Oh, well, there we go.
Is it?
All right. What's kind of interesting is, again, that Miko's, in fact, they did a Best of Miko release a couple of years ago, where a lot of his, Star Wars related material, and I want to say he also did, hoping to have similar sort of success. He had a disco version of the theme from Close Encounters. It was one of Raiders too, I believe. Oh God. I don't even want to think about that. But maybe it'd be intriguing to see if Miko, the Best of Miko, came out through Rhino, because they always do, some wonderful work in niche recordings, and I wonder if, as part of that, they at least scored the rights temporarily to Christmas in the Stars. But wow,
you wonder. It also says on Amazon, by the way, where it asks you, is it discontinued by manufacturer? It says no. I don't know how frequently they update something like this. Another fun fact that I think is kind of fascinating. It's this album is one of the music industry's first non-classical or jazz projects to be recorded and mixed digitally, which is fascinating. And then what can you get a Wookiee for Christmas? As you mentioned, it reached number 69 on the Billboard 100 charts in 1980. Only the third digitally recorded single in Billboard chart history. How about that?
That is killer. That is cool. But again, if you dig down into Miko's career, I mean, that's the thing. He was a very ambitious. I mean, he was a musical prodigy as a kid, and so he was always sort of working the forefront of what the industry was up to. So honestly, I'm not surprised to hear that he was the first to dabble in digital. But wow, that's that a great
disco stuff was pretty fun. Pretty fun. Like the class. In fact, Rebel Force Radio uses that their output they can have for years and years. I guess let's talk about the individual tracks themselves. Is there anything that is legitimately worth revisiting in your opinion? We've got, Twisted Knife. We've got, here's the list. We've got 9 of them. We've got Christmas in the Stars, Bells, 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 The Odds Against Christmas, What Can You Get a Wookiee for Christmas When He Already Owns a Comb, R2-D2, We Wish You a Merry Christmas, Sleigh Ride, Merry Merry Christmas, A Christmas Sighting, Twist the Night Before Christmas, and number 9, The Meaning of Christmas, which is 8 minutes and 8 seconds long, by far the longest track on this album.
I have to tell you that, again, like you, I think I may have heard one or two of these things back in 1980 in real time. But this was my first time revisiting this. And I have to tell you that I am a huge fan of Maury Easton's work in Grand Hotel. Likewise, if there was ever a story that shouldn't have been a musical, Titanic. And what's interesting, it's a beautiful work. It's got great songs, and kind of interesting that it arrived at the marketplace ahead of the James Cameron film, but it did really well at the Tonys, and has been produced by a lot of folks over the years, but again, kind of got thrown into eclipse by the Cameron film. So I love this guy's work, but I have to, again, my problem is that it's, I mean, I don't need to tell you this, that the Star Wars universe is so distinct. It has its own language. It has its own style. And that's the fact that here's poor Maury Easton writing, trying to write a Christmas Star Wars themed thing just based on what he knows from A New Hope. And it's really not all that specific. It's not well tuned to the universe. Whereas on the other hand, if you look at, for example, we were talking about the Lego Holiday Special, and that's written by people who have the benefit of what at that point there were 9 plus, Star Wars films and all sorts of books and that sort of thing. And, that's incredibly specific to the universe and very funny and well observed. And I for me, that's what's kind of lacking from this recording. It's neither fish nor fowl. It's again, to have C-3PO and R2-D2 referencing Santa, just sort of like it doesn't quite work. I don't know. What about you? Is there a particular track for this, that leaped out for you, or?
I mean, just the idea that Jon Bon Jovi is involved is pretty neat, just from a trivia point of view or from a popular culture perspective. Mm-hmm. But there's not. I mean, I am, as you can see in the studio, and of course over the years, I love Christmas. I love Christmas music. Mm-hmm. I love Star Wars, but I've never really felt the intense desire that they must go together like chocolate and peanut butter, or Fred and Ginger, or what have you.
This is chocolate and petroleum jelly. Let's be completely honest. All right, just just they're not. I mean, it's a nice try. It really is, and I will say this much.
Charming for what it is.
Yeah, and I like the art on the album cover. And
it's Ralph McQuarrie. Yeah.
There you go. I mean, how can you not be happy with a Ralph McQuarrie? But yeah, it's I honestly wonder if RSO Records had not gotten its legal issues dealt with, and if they'd gotten that second pressing, would and again following the the template of the Andy Williams Christmas album or the Nat King Cole stuff and reissued year after year after year after year, whether we would be talking about this differently, if it had managed to get into heavy rotation with everything else, the sleigh ride and the beginning to look a lot like Christmas. I don't know. It just. It's the luck of the draw that, they got this 150,000 copies out there, and that was it.
So if you have this album, please email us and let us know what you think about it. I mean, and I agree with you. It's sort of hard to expect creators to be able to dabble in a universe that they're not very familiar with. I mean, it's almost like saying, I want you to drive this car, but I'm not going to give you the keys, and there's no gas there either. So just roll it down the hill and let's see what happens. And that's probably as good a metaphor as any.
I agree. I mean, it just, but at the same time, think about it. Someone like Alan Dean Forster, who did the novelization of the first Star Wars book, and then did what is it? The Eye of the Needle? Is that the
Splinter of the Mind's Eye?
Splinter of the Mind's Eye. What's fascinating is this is a guy who had adapted the original, film to the novelization, and so when he stepped back into this world, and more to the point, there's all those stories about, George Lucas said, well, don't leave out Han and Chewie because we don't know if we're going to be able to get, Harrison back, and that he was able to sculpt a story for that world that did work because he was familiar with the world and he was familiar with the characters. It was his second time up. So in a weird way, it's not honestly fair to go after Maury Easton, because it's like there was only the one movie and they didn't tell him anything about what was going on with Empire, so in fact, I think that honestly didn't help the situation either, in that, the whole world at that point, this is November of 1980 when it comes out. So everybody's talking about the cliffhanger, which doesn't get addressed at all in the recording, and all of the worlds, and there's no Lando in this thing. There's no there's no tauntauns, and in fact that's think about what if you were writing a Christmas album, wouldn't you have liked to have known about Hoth?
Oh, I know, red-nosed tauntaun. I mean, that would be wonderful.
Yeah,
that would be wonderful.
But again, that was just, the left arm of Lucasfilm not telling the right arm what was going on. So
let's go ahead and take a really quick break, and we will return with more from Jim Hill. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
And, I mean, imagine if it came out after Return of the Jedi, something like, Jabba's carcass roasting on an open fire right after it explodes, something like that.
Oh, okay. Again, that's Dan that put that visual in your head, folks. I didn't do that.
This is the kind of classic material you need to go hunt down our past episodes of Looking at Lucasfilm for this kind of high-quality banter.
Okay. So, well, anyway.
So you mentioned the holiday special.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you for sharing that.
Glad to do it.
Sorry it took so long, but it was worth the wait, my friend. And hopefully you have the album and you are enjoying it. Look, and of course, if this album is something that brings you joy, absolutely wonderful. We are thrilled about that. I do want to tell you really quickly. I posted a poll a couple days ago on Coffee with Kenobi's Twitter feed about the Star Wars holiday special. And I think I put something like, can't miss it. And the other option was must miss it. And the third one was I've never seen it. And it was actually tied perfectly. And people who can't miss it and people who would never see it again. Now, I've only seen it once, and it was when it first came out. And I remember enjoying it, but wanting to see more of the core characters. I feel like they're only on the beginning and the end, but it's been so long. I'm a little hesitant to revisit it again because I'm afraid of the bad taste it'll put in my mouth, but it might make for some good podcasting. And I do have a bootleg copy, as so many people do.
Yeah, but it just, I will just caution you before you head in. There's a lot of it that just plays like a really long Carol Burnett sketch. And I say that lovingly as somebody who, really enjoyed the Carol Burnett show, but there's way too much Harvey Korman in this thing. And, likewise, Beatrice Arthur is running a cantina, and it, but at the same time, I love Art Carney. I grew up with the Honeymooners, so it's like, it's fun to see people that you enjoy in the Star Wars universe. It's just, you wish they were doing Star Wars stuff as opposed to, Carol Burnett stuff. So just, I just caution you that if you're going to do it, start with, a big glass of eggnog that isn't as much
cocktail.
nog, I mean, just light on the nog, heavy on the whatever you put in the eggnog, and that'll make it that much more enjoyable. But geez, it's hard watching.
And isn't there an extended stretch where there's just Wookiees speaking Shriwook and there's no subtitles?
Yes, there is, but at the same time, it's just like what I love is that because this is television of the 1970s. Before this thing aired, somebody from CBS Standard and Practices had to sit and watch this 2-hour long thing, and sign off on. It's like, what does the script say the Wookiee is saying? It's like, and are the Wookiees appropriately dressed?
Is it really 2 hours? It's 2 hours?
Well, you got to remember that initially they signed on for an hour, and but that CBS was so excited about this. And and the people who were writing it, the sketches got longer, and the inserts got longer. And remember, it's got that wonderful. I mean, in fact, the one reason that it's worth checking out is that animated chunk where you first get introduced to the character of Boba Fett. But yeah, it went from an hour to it grew to 2 hours. And CBS was thrilled because that meant they could sell that much more commercial time. But boy, sure. Dan, did it get flabby. I mean, it just, seriously, it's just, get yourself a good, strong eggnog before you even consider this. In fact, wait till you're starting on the second eggnog and then put it in. So
noted.
Okay.
All right. Well, that is very good advice. Well, Jim, it's been great sharing the microphone with you once again. We'll have to do this much more regularly. People always love hearing from you, which is evident by the immensely successful Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. Please let everybody know where they can find you and all of your great shows.
Well, let's see. We have the Mothership Disney Dish with Len Testa. We have Marvelous Disney, which I do with Aaron Adams, the gentleman who edits all of the podcasts over at the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network. And then, of course, we have Fine Tuning with the inimitable Drew Taylor. And always
the
great
soft-spoken, mild-mannered Drew Taylor.
Yes, who has been working like a crazy person lately. Between doing our podcast and doing his own wonderful Light the Fuse, which is about the Mission Impossible show films, likewise the John Wick film series, and going to soon be really branching into Top Gun and its upcoming sequel Maverick. But he's also writes these great articles for The Wrap, and just these past 2 weeks or so between all of the films, the Christmas blockbusters he's got to see. In fact, I want to say just yesterday, he got to see Spider-Man No Way Home, and was on Twitter, trying to, right around the embargo he's kind of handcuffed by, but he seemed to really enjoy that. So, but yeah, that those are the podcasts. And if you're looking for us on social media, let's see, we are on Facebook and as Jim Hill Media, and I want to say Instagram as Jim Hill Media News. But yeah, that'll cover it. So, but again, thanks for inviting me on. I mean, I wish we were talking about something that was a wee bit more enjoyable than Christmas in the Stars. But again, it's nice that we finally did tell this story, even as weird as it is. But gotta wonder how many people on the heels of this will go digging around for their old LP and see how much they can get for it on eBay. So,
oh yeah, it looks like it's going to go for a pretty penny. Well, Jim, thank you again. Please let us know what you think about Christmas in the Stars, and did our history lesson provide a spark of imagination inside of you, where you want to seek this thing out and and hear the dulcet tones of Jon Bon Jovi. If you don't like this Jon Bon Jovi album, he does have some others that you can seek out and you may enjoy a little bit more.
Perhaps.
Thanks again, Jim.
All right. Take care.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are. With Dan Z, the podcast you're looking for. This is...
A huge thank you to Jim Hill for returning to Coffee with Kenobi. Always great to share the airwaves with him. We've had so much fun over the years, and I know you have a lot of fun listening to him and him telling his amazing stories. I also want to thank MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, the official travel partner of Coffee with Kenobi. Be sure to go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel for your no-cost, no-obligation quote. You can help plan your magical vacation with them and support Coffee with Kenobi in the process. And they are also, by the way, really good at helping you find an affordable, reasonable place to stay if you are going to Star Wars Celebration. So again, be sure to go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/mousefantravel for more help with that. Be sure to check us out on Monday nights at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time for CWK Live at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/live or www.facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi. This week we're going to be talking about our top 5 favorite Boba Fett moments overall. Before we get to the book of Boba Fett, we're going to relive what we do know about Boba Fett on Facebook Live, and because it is interactive, you can be a part of the show, every single week. We also have a CWK Facebook group at www.coffeewithkenobi.com/community. You can go there for Star Wars thoughts, comments, reviews, and opinions in a family-friendly, spoiler and drama-free place. Share your pictures of your collection, weigh in on your opinion of Star Wars topics. It's a lot of fun, and I love seeing new people there all the time. If you want to become a member of the CWK Alliance, be sure to go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/support. And this is where you can get access to CWK Prover, the audio and video exclusive weekly podcast not heard anywhere else. 10% of your monthly contributions will also go directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital. So you are able to support me and Coffee with Kenobi. I can give back to you with the audio and video podcast. And more importantly, we get to help out the kids from St. Jude. www.coffeewithkenobi.com is the website for Star Wars news, announcements, reviews, videos, and so much more. You can email me at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com. Connect with me on Twitter at Mr. Zer, MRZEHR, on Instagram at DanZerCWK, and on LinkedIn. You can also find Coffee with Kenobi on LinkedIn, as well as on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and TikTok. Be sure to give the show a like on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, or subscribe to Coffee with Kenobi's YouTube channel. If you have a few moments, please take a couple of them to rate and review the show on iTunes or Google Podcasts. Every review makes a difference and bumps us up. When people search for Star Wars, they will see Coffee with Kenobi if we have more reviews. And, it's going really, really well, but every extra review certainly helps. It's a nice way to give me a little bit of an extra Christmas present. How about that? Be sure to go to www.coffeewithkenobi.com/shop if you like the Coffee with Kenobi logo or other designs created by Corey Club and other amazing independent artists. danzmedia.com is where you can go if you want to have me come to your school, conference, business, or organization to talk about how to tap into your strengths and help you bring out your very best. If you want to start a podcast or blog or expand the brand that you have, that is where you can go. I've had so many wonderful conversations with so many talented, aspiring people, and I hope you will be the next person to become a part of that happy little family at danzmedia.com. Thanks again so much, everybody. Have a great week and weekend. So close to the big day, Christmas itself. We'll have Coffee with Kenobi with you next week, of course. 2 shows, as we always do. Until then, this is the podcast you're looking for. Thanks again, everybody.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.